This is one of the two sketches. This is the one that Andy's written, and we're both going to do that together. So you're going to introduce it, Andy?
Yes.
Cheers.
This one's called Red Trousers, and it's a trilogy. This is the first part, the backstory. The Scrotum family had been a thorn in the foot of the British aristocracy for 6 generations. Archibald was no exception. His outspoken views of things of no importance had long been ignored by his peers, and his family considered him a dreadful bore. Archie had somehow managed to marry well to the youngest daughter of the Thrushington family, Chlamydia. Or Clammy to her friends. A beauty in her time, but now merely known as the matriarch of the Scrotums. Archibald's best and only friend was called Percy. Now Percy's family were big in porcelain and had been trying to point Percy in the right direction for most of his adult life. But to no avail. Archie and Percy were old pals from their school days at Harrow and had gotten especially close since the fire at the club, when Percy, after several large glasses of rum punch, got overexcited and tried to light one of his legendary farts. Rolling sideways off the table, caught the curtains alight, and the ensuing blaze burnt the 200-year-old club to the ground. Thankfully no one was hurt, but both Archie and Percy were banned for life. Percy had unfortunately developed a trauma-related form of Tourette's. Arse tits! His wife Lydia, long-time friend of Chlamydia, they too were at school together, St Trinians. Lydia still held the school record for the yard of ale drinking and was very proud of her achievements. The 4 social pariahs kept one another's company, and on this particular afternoon, Archibald was at the local farm shop shopping for dinner. Red trousers. Red trousers, yes, everyone knows, go with deck shoes or maybe a stout pair of brogues, with a belly-stretched shirt, buttons fit for a bursting, and a parched purple tongue for the red wines a-thirsting, with a nose like a beetroot and rosy red cheeks, and a wallet as thick as the leather that squeaks, lovely teeth that protrude with an orangey hue, glisten warm with saliva like fresh morning dew, with an old barber jacket that's seen better days. As the spittle flies out, very loudly he sprays.
Do you have those potatoes with a nice piece of fish? Or something perhaps one could cook in a dish? Do you have any liver or artichoke hearts? But nothing with onions, they give me the farts.
He'll mumble and amble with his self-contained banter as he looks with disdain at the goods on the counter.
Have you got any wine or a small glass of something, or brandy or gin to keep the old ticker thumping?
He'll laugh to himself of his dark, distant days, of his conquests at Harrow in an opium haze.
Oh, good show,
he says out loud and quite brazen, followed up with a chortle and snort for no reason. He looks around, really quite pleased with himself, about cherries in cognac he spied on the shelf.
Love these little blighters.
He splutters quite roughly, thumps down the jar on the tabletop roughly. The young lady smiles and says,
£3.98. I'll be just a moment. I won't make you wait.
So she bends for a bag, and his eyes open wide. Stirrings of stirrings begin deep inside. A long-lost libido from way back and when. And he grins and thinks,
Oh, what I would have done then.
So he goes through his pockets for cash, now distracted by the things from his past he wished he'd enacted. He hands her a crumpled up fiver he's got, and he winks and says,
Sweetie, pop that in your pot.
She gives him a look as he heads for the door, his leather-soled brogue softly slip on the floor, to a battered Land Rover that's parked up close by, with a red rosy glow and a glint in his eye. Later that evening, back at Scrotum Grange. Archibald Scrotum and his dear wife Chlamydia sat down on the sofa with Percy and Lydia. Poor Percy was quirky, he wasn't quite right, since that fire at the club on the frightful dark night. Things he would say and the things he would shout, things that were in that just had to come out.
Would you like a drink, Percy?
Said Archibald, rising, with a creak and a groan and a tone quite surprising. Scotch, old boy! promptly came Percy's reply. The smile made his monocle fall from his eye. Vickers with arse tits, snorted Percy, out loud for no reason, and Archibald said,
You know, I don't think they're in season.
he chuckled and poured them both a huge scotch, whilst hoping for dinner, glanced down at his watch. Shall we move to the dining room? Gestured Chlamydia. Shit bastard, said Percy.
Of course, sir,
said Lydia. As the entrees were finished and on to the main, as the wine and the whiskey took hold of the brain, relaxing poor Percy and making him worse, until barely a thing could be said without curse.
more wise,
Said Archie as he sawed at his steak. So he poured himself some whilst considering cake. Percy said, bastard fish, bearing his arse.
Quite right,
said Archie whilst filling his glass. Lydia and Chlamydia were slurring their sherry, discussing dear Lydia's mad Uncle Terry.
They took him away in a car without warning. He was found in the village, quite naked one morning, eating the daffodils and whistling Dixie. A terrible shock for our darling Aunt Trixie.
Oh dear, said Chlamydia, her head in her hand, remembering when he was in the brass band. Does he still have his trumpet?
Yes, it hangs in the hall. It's right next to her sousaphone on the wall.
And so went the evening, eating and boozing, ending with Archibald snoring and snoozing, until Percy, half-seated and still mildly stable, shouted, arse biscuits, and passed out on the table.